You know, you've never actually faced voters before. Are you nervous?
Well, you have to be a little bit nervous, and, I like to win, and I want to win for the country. I don't want to win for myself, and this is actually my first election night. I've gone through many election nights, but it was always for somebody else, George. This is a little bit different for me.
Yeah, she sounds like a politician. It is for real, though, tonight. Here it begins, and Donald Trump obviously has been leading in the polls nationally and otherwise. Let's see how much of that translates into reality tonight. Now, all those numbers, all those polls, all the bombast goes out the window and reality sets in. Tonight, we will know exactly just how real Trump is, because if he wins Iowa, I defy anyone to say that this is just a farce and a media creation. Also, what a Trump win would mean for the rest of the field and the Republican Party. Let's start with the GOP. Let's bring in our panel. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Gian-Carlo Persutti, he a former aide to President George Herbert Walker Bush. Guys, thank you very much here. And
happy caucus night.
Yeah, happy caucus night, exactly. By the way, because I can't hear me in Iowa, these things are bizarre.
They are.
But seriously,
they are.
Just think about this. The three of us, right? We want to get in. You want to close the curtain, you vote, and go home. Imagine we're in Iowa tonight. I have to sit around and for 2 hours go back and forth. What happened to one person, one vote? Why do I have to convince some yente here that, she or he should like somebody?
They take their role as number one very serious.
I know, but isn't it a little bit like,
there.
why is somebody talking me out of who I want to vote for? I got to find 14 other people for my vote to count. You know what I mean? There's an oddity to it.
Yeah, I think, for all the investment that the candidates make, this is the voters' way of saying we're really going to take it seriously ourselves, and we'll do our democratic duty.
And
He's good. He's good, but I think it's
he's good. But one other thing that we left out here, remember, even before you caucus, you've got to get past the black ice on the road to get to the. It's no joke in Iowa.
They thought as recently as 24 hours ago weather would be a huge factor tonight. It looks like it's going to hold off until the caucuses wrap up, but nonetheless, it's really going to test ground games. You heard from my guest before, if you don't have precinct commanders, it's really a difference. How committed are these kids at these colleges, which represent a big base of the Sanders support? But staying on the Republican side, Gian-Carlo, you look at the map. He wins Iowa. Certainly, New Hampshire looks good for Trump. He does better than everybody when you look at South Carolina and then map Nevada and all the way down the line. There could be, and I can't believe I'm saying this, if he wins tonight and it validates those polls, there could be a growing inevitability to a Trump. I mean, I know there's a lot of lip from here to there, but the Bushes, you win Iowa, it could be a portent of things to come.
For me, the next 10 days will be illustrative of one thing. It will be a shock if Donald Trump does not win one or both, Iowa and New Hampshire. I think what the next 10 days will reveal is who is his primary, no pun intended, who is his primary competitor between now and Cleveland. That's what we will know when New Hampshire is in the books. If he puts Ted Cruz away tonight, outside the margin of error, I think Cruz starts to circle the drain. I think Rubio will probably do a little bit better than people think. And then heading into New Hampshire, there's that scrum for second place. It's a foregone conclusion Trump wins New Hampshire. Who's second place coming out of there? And that's when I think you start to get some focus on who Donald Trump's primary challenger will be.
And Dom, I want to get into the calendar in a second, like Gian-Carlo said, and also some of the party pressures that are going to be the next part of this. But if we step back for a second, we're in February, and now we're trying to come up with a scenario where Donald Trump doesn't emerge as the eventual nominee. Oh, my God.
Today was somewhat surreal for me to even think about that. It was part depressing to think about that, about when you think about our politics as a country, where we are right now, how personality-driven this process is. I am telling you, should Trump win Iowa tonight, and I'm not exactly sure, but should he win Iowa tonight, there's no stopping that train. Because you're going to go through the calendar, excuse me, you're going into his stronghold. New Hampshire, it's almost a wrap. And so it will be irrelevant who the alternative is with the way this train is going down the path.
Except, pull the curtain back a little bit for us, Gian-Carlo. Now, the results come in. And typically, a lot of people have built a lot of the campaigns. Christie, for example, he's in New Hampshire tonight, and a lot of other folks have as well. There's going to be, I would imagine, and you tell me if I'm right, there's going to be a lot of consternation, a lot of pressure for the party folks, for the money people to say, it's getting late early here. We got to get around one establishment candidate. Now, whether that's Rubio, whether that's Kasich, if he has a surprise tonight, whether that's Christie, unlikely, or whether that's Jeb Bush, somebody, one of them's got to emerge because there's too many candidates. Will they let them play it out through New Hampshire, or do they say, somebody's got to go before we even get there?
Oh, no, they'll absolutely let them play it out through New Hampshire for a lot of the reasons that we just discussed. I think that the second and third finishes in Iowa are going to be important, and the second place finish in New Hampshire is going to be crucial. No question that the party wants that winnowing of the field to take place, but this is where things like super PACs really complicate it, because the reality is with super PAC money behind you, there is no compelling reason for you to drop out. If you're Jeb Bush, you've got the money you need to carry you far into the race. And so long as you're showing, if you're not winning or placing, there is that impetus and there is that reason for you to stay in the contest.
We got word that Christie's got $1 million cash on hand, as an example, to pick one candidate. He's going to stick it out through New Hampshire. Nobody's going to make him say otherwise. But after New Hampshire, Gian-Carlo, is that the point where people say, listen, so either you take yourself out on your terms publicly, or we're going to be very public, we're putting the money somewhere else.
That's right. And a lot of it has to do with your viability and your age. For Jeb Bush, this is probably his last campaign, so that's going to factor into it. For someone like Chris Christie, he's got to weigh whether or not he wants to stay a viable public figure, at least insofar as politics are concerned, because that plays a big role too. If you antagonize the party and the party remembers that you didn't drop out when you should have, that's baggage that's going to stick with you for the rest of your career. So there are all sorts of things at play to determine when and when a candidate drops out and when they don't.
Do you think, Dominic, right now, I mean, it's different than some of the state and city politics we've covered, where they got a pretty good idea at this point how the night's going to end, with how bizarre, as our guest already explained, the caucus process is. Do you think candidates right now say, you know what, in about 45 minutes or so, or an hour and a half, or whatever it is, this thing's going to start. I already have a pretty good idea where I'm going to fall in the pecking order. Do you think they know?
Yes and no. An indicator, as has been widely reported, long lines. Long lines indicate a good night for Bernie Sanders and for Donald Trump. But with this caucus process that you're referring to, and I've observed it 3 different times in person, anything can happen. Anything, the weather can play a role tonight, whether or not the college kids, they're in school, whether the college kids show up. If they show up, then Hillary Clinton's going to have a rough night.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Democrats in a second. We've gotten some word here that there has been an influx of calls from people today asking about how they can register. You can register literally day of. You have to pick a party. That was part of the process, as our guest explained before. All those indicators, and they're just tangential, but the indicators, like Dominic said, the bigger the turnout, the better for a Trump and the better for a Sanders on the Democratic side. But we're going to hear in a little bit. There's tons of concerns on the Republican side beyond just the 6 or 8 as to who gets winnowed down to the 3 or 4 in a couple weeks. Down ticket. You got senators, you got House members, you got governors even that are worried about how this thing plays out. Do you think that people will hold their nose on a broader level and just get behind Trump because he'll be the standard bearer if it plays out that way? Or do you say, or they say, you know what, I'll write off the top, but I'm not going down with that chip. I'm going to go after him, like we have seen a few do.
Well, I think the big irony here was at the beginning of all this, people, when Donald Trump first started getting traction, the concern was, well, we have to treat him with kid gloves, because if we antagonize him, he's going to run as a third party, and he's going to deny the Republicans the presidency. Well, now it looks like he may deny the Republicans the presidency by virtue of the fact that he's the nominee, right? I would make the calculation that having Donald Trump as the nominee is far worse, generationally worse for the party and down ticket in perpetuity. It doesn't look like he'd run as an independent now. I think that ship has sailed. But there's a very real concern of that, Richard. And that's why you start to hear, Dominic mentioned Bernie Sanders' potential strength tonight, and I agree with him 100%. If turnout is big, it's going to be a big night for Bernie Sanders. You have a Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump, I can guarantee you there will be a viable third-party candidate running for president.
And we've already heard the name Michael Bloomberg float around if that scenario, just as Gian-Carlo described, becomes a reality. Well, as we said here, it is caucus night. We talked about the Republicans. Coming up next, we take a look at the Democrats. And unlike their GOP counterparts, many of the so-called experts believe that the establishment candidate, when it's all said and done tonight, Hillary Clinton, will win. But trust me, all the so-called experts, we've been wrong before. We'll talk about that and debate it straight ahead.